G'day folks, it's Rob here. Thought I'd post a little bit of a clip on what I've been up to in the garden today. I was hoping that there'd be a lot more content in it, but mainly I've only just been able to finish off one bed. The reason being is we've got some roots intruding into a wicking bed. I discovered it over a week ago, but I had a workshop to do and some other bits and pieces cropped up, so I only got to address it yesterday. Now, I discovered the roots in the far corner. By the way, for you folks who don't know, we grow in self-watering wicking beds, basically a reservoir down the bottom made from a plastic liner. It wicks water up into the soil so your plants have access to all the water they want. There's a little clip up there that shows how the bed in particular was made. My design, by the way, has changed a lot since then. That was about 6 years ago. So anyway, back to the problem. The roots had started to grow up the side between the plastic and the tin that is the outside of the bed, and they grew through a little slot that I had cut in the plastic into the bed, taking advantage of all the nutrients and the water in the reservoir, basically turning the soil in there into, you know, pretty rubbish soil. All the organics and the minerals had been taken out of it, and none of the plants had been doing that well for the last couple of years. So what I decided to do was dig around the side of the bed, expose all the plastic liner and see if any other roots had made their way into the bed, and sure enough, down the fill end, behind the camera actually, where the trellis is set up, there'd been a large section of root that had grown up beside the tin, over the top of the plastic, and had grown pretty much the whole length of the bed. And I'd say that root there was the one that had pretty much sapped all the life and the energy out of the soil in the bed. The other root down the other end of the bed only looked like it was fairly new, it was fairly soft tissue, so wasn't something that had, you know, done too much damage in the bed, but definitely not something I wanted in there. So down the far end, because I couldn't get all that root out of where the cut had been made in the plastic, the drainage slit, what I did was I siliconed over a little bit of plastic liner, and just to make sure if the root does grow up there again, it won't come through that hole. The root up the other end here, I've actually left it in place. I've zip tied it to the trellis. I've cut it about 1/2 foot above the edge of the bed, just so I can see if sections of that root have grown up and compromised the soil during this growing season. So yeah, it's just a quick fix for now. This bed will be coming out at the end of the season. This area where I'm sitting will actually be part of the chicken run in the redesign. So I'm only after one more good season out of this bed, just to see it out, and yeah, then it's coming down. So the soil was basically pretty crud, not a good soil profile whatsoever, so I decided that I needed to dig through some organics, but before I wasted my time doing that, I decided to put some water into the reservoir. I filled it up late last night, only about half full, and just let it be, and when I came out this morning I got a pleasant surprise. I was half expecting there to be a rupture somewhere in the liner. There was still a nice level of water in there, so I know that the reservoir is, you know, pretty much still intact. One thing I did notice though, that there was a line where the water had wicked up to a certain point, and that was pretty much it. I put that down to being, you know, not a lot of organic matter in the soil, so it can't wick up and the soil had become pretty compacted. So what I've done is I've dug through a bag of stable scrapings, basically horse manure and sawdust, and then also added in a couple of wheelbarrow loads worth of compost from one of the compost cages. Nice rich fluffy compost, so that'll definitely help add some organic matter in there to help wick the water up from the reservoir. I also dug through a couple of litres worth of pelletized organic soil fertiliser, as well as a rock mineral blend that David put me onto. Thank you very much, mate. That's been dug through here as well, mainly because the tree would have sucked a lot of the life out of the soil that was left in this bed. Just quickly, the worms, I did notice that the worms weren't looking too healthy in this bed. I did find a couple of compost worms while I was digging through, but yeah, they pretty much were all wrapped up into little balls, so I did pop them back into the bed, so hopefully they will, you know, reinvigorate themselves and feed on the new organic matter and bacteria that have been added into the bed, and do a good job at providing some nice castings for these plants. Once I turned the soil, I also spread out another layer of the stable scrapings, mainly because it's going to give a nice mulch effect, because I don't have a lot of sugarcane mulch or loosened mulch to finish off the bed for the time being. So under each of these seedlings that were planted out today, I also put a little bit of worm castings from our own worm farm, mainly because it's a good little all-round plant tonic. It's got nutrients in there and other elements that boost plant growth. Hopefully these plants will get a cracking start to life. So I've turned the bed into a bit of a polyculture again. Up the far end I planted out a whole heap of onions around the outside, some that have been neglected over the last couple of weeks while I was busy. Also 4 cauliflower went down the far end. I've popped 3 Roma tomatoes up the center here, mainly because, you know, we get a fairly warm winter and I can train them up using some baling twine and tomato clips. Popped a couple of sage in as well. Some rainbow chard or rainbow silver beet went up the other end, and then I've popped out some honey pod snap peas at the trellis end, and hopefully they'll give us, you know, a continual crop of peas through the season. The leftovers from these punnets, the tomatoes, the chard, the onions and the peas will be distributed in other pouches and garden beds around the place. That's pretty much where we're up to. I'll give you a bit of a quick look at how the bed looks now, and yeah, we'll have a bit of a wander around a few other bits and pieces in the patch. So this is the bed that's taken me over a day to sort out. That root incursion was just down in that corner over there. It grew up to around about there, the root stopped, and this root that's coming up down in there, we'll see if we can zoom in for a better look. So that root there is actually growing up between the plastic and the tin, so I didn't really want to chop it off too low just so it could resprout more roots and cause the same problem. I thought by zip tying them to the trellis there, I can keep an eye on them, follow it down to the plastic and see if any more have grown over. I have a feeling it's actually coming from a tree next door, that one. They don't quite look like mango roots. So yeah, definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on, but you know, keeping in mind this bed's only going to be around for a couple more months, probably about 8 to 12 at the most, before the soil gets taken out and put into new wicking beds I want to set up. So what I've got here is a whole load of marigold flower heads. I've just broken open. They actually came from a plant from this bed that I pulled out the other day. It started to die off. So what I'm going to do with these guys is just sprinkle them all over the top of this bed here, and they'll get a bit of a watering in once I give the rest of the plants a bit of a hit with the hose, and then I'm just going to cover it up with the sugarcane mulch. So as you can see, I didn't quite have enough mulch to finish it off, so I've just left the onions bare for the time being. I really didn't want to, you know, cover them around the bulb too much because I've had problems with onions before. I planted them too deep and they didn't do much. So once these guys put on a little bit more size, I'll mulch around them a little bit closer, just so I can see where their bulbs are sitting. But yeah, the rest of the plants, they should go okay in there. And like I said, those 3 tomatoes, we've got 1, 2 and 3, they should do all right here. We have a fairly warm winter. Now this top bed, this bed here is the one that had the pumpkin growing out of it. The pumpkin's actually just there. You can see the root section or the base of the plant, and it's still growing fairly well. There's a couple of pumpkins we might actually go over and show you, I think. So we've got that little pumpkin there. He's a little bit distorted, a little bit funny looking. And just over here we have another pumpkin just growing underneath the edge of the shade cloth there. That's all from the same vine. There was actually a stump there. It looks a bit weird. There was a stump there. I've used some of the soil from this bed that I've cleaned out to make way for the compost and the horse manure. I popped it in there just to build it up. It'll end up being a chook pen there soon enough, and I've just buried over parts of the vine, so it was a bit of a tripping hazard. It was very soft where the root had rotted, so I just decided to fill it up. So, but anyway, this vine, yeah, it's pretty much all dying off now. There's a couple of more pumpkins. You may not be able to see it, but there's a large one there, a couple more over that way, 1 or 2 out in the lawn over there, and a couple more just down near the fence there. So for a volunteer plant that shot up in some worm castings, it's doing very well. I'm really pleased with it. So this bed here that the pumpkin's growing out of, I have a feeling it suffered the same fate as the bed next to it that I've just fixed up today, mainly because the plants haven't done very well. I mean, the pumpkin's done well. It's grown out, set out roots in the lawn, so it's getting nutrients from all around the place and water from here. But the leeks just down in here, they haven't done very well, and neither did the strawberries. And I had some sage, it's looking very poor, and some other plants up this end. I think basically the roots from the trees have got in there and sucked the life out of this bed as well. I had put it down to the pumpkin originally, just taking over the whole bed, but yeah, there's a couple of strange looking roots down in there as I've been digging around. So this bed here is the next one to get the treatment. Tomorrow afternoon I'll come out and dig around the edge, or tomorrow morning actually. I've got a farm visit tomorrow, but yeah, I'll dig around the outside and see if the roots have breached the liner and are taking over the bed. So, you know, you live and you learn. Definitely won't make wicking beds that way again, but yeah, just part of the evolution of gardening, I suppose. This bed down in here where Mr. Turtle's sitting, we've got a volunteer warrigal green that's just popped up, so I'm letting it be for now. some of those onion seedlings that I didn't pop into this bed will probably end up in here as well. The next bed down in the patch is the one that the massive turmeric harvest from last season came from. And as you can see, there's some turmeric that I just left, some small rhizomes, just missed them, and they've popped up. Down in here we've got some perennial leeks still. That's my mother clump that I harvest all the rest for to plant around the patch. Down here we have some very nice sugarloaf cabbage. This is the only cabbage we have planted out at the moment, and being inside the shade house, it's, you know, pretty much will escape the cabbage butterfly. Has got a bit of damage though done to it by the grasshoppers, but I'm not too worried about that. Just behind the cabbage bed we have a couple of wicking barrels. The one on the right's got comfrey, one on the left had parsley and warrigal greens, and in the bed next to that we have pretty much all the same problem as the others. I think we've got root intrusion in there. There is a jalapeno, believe it or not, up in that corner. All these warrigal greens are grown over from a bed behind it, and there's a little broccoli just down in there, and also down this end some Mexican tarragon that I've just cut back. Now, 3 plants in this bed. They don't use a lot of water, yet every second week I'm finding this reservoir is dry, so I'm fairly sure roots have invaded this bed as well. Again, the same problem. I cut little slits in the liner, and I think the roots have found their way in, so I'm sort of glad these wicking beds are coming out, because I get to build some better ones with some more tricked out reservoirs to hold some more water, so really looking forward to that. So just down here beside the camera we've got our little root pouch wicking garden. The galangal up the back there is still doing alright. You can see the chocolate capsicums over in the corner. There's a couple that are starting to get nice and red, ready to pick. I like those guys when they're red, nice and sweet. Little ball capsicum or sweet pepper, it's doing well. A lot of these ones down the front though, they were hit by a mite infestation, and I've noticed there's actually a couple affecting the leaves on the ball capsicum as well. What they do is they get into the underside of the leaf and they start to sap life, or basically suck life from the leaf itself. I'll just pull this pepper off and show you. As you can see, there's a bit of mite damage on this fruit of this pepper as well, so I definitely have an issue in a few places around the patch. I've caught what I think they are on film. I think they're a little red mite, not a spider mite. They don't have a web. I got some very blurry vision from a eggplant near the back stairs, one of the leaves on there. So what I'm looking at doing is buying some beneficial mites from a mob here in Queensland, and I'm going to release them in a couple of spots around the garden and see if we can battle them that way. I've tried the soapy water mix, I've tried a few other things, so we're going with a beneficial mite approach to see if that works for me. So I'll just give you a bit of a look at a couple of other beds there. The Okinawan spinach is going gangbusters in that barrel. We've been eating a fair bit of it. Down here we have some strawberries in root pouches and a big mustard plant. These strawberries have all been propagated from a couple that sort of survived down in here, and there's some more runners I need to pop into more pouches. These guys will end up in another garden somewhere else, because I do know that this bed has been compromised by mango tree root. I found them a while back, so not real interested in planting too much in there this season. The turmeric, as you can see in the barrel, it's starting to die off, so I'll probably harvest all of that this year, because I need to move that barrel anyway. We might dry that out into a powder. If you're interested in seeing another turmeric harvest clip, you know, give me the thumbs up or something, let me know, and I'll post one when I pull it all out of that barrel. Down the back there we have a barrel full of weed grass. That actually came from small clumps down here. Some of that soil's come out of the garden bed that I fed up today. I'm just trying to level off this spot here. The reason I took it out was I wanted to add organic matter into that bed, and I figure I'm planting things out here soon, so I might as well use that as a bit of a starter soil for some bits and pieces I want to put in the ground there. Just up from the pile we have a wicking bed full of warrigal greens. They look like they're dying off a bit, so I actually forgot to water that for over a week, so that's probably the reason why. And the same with this Queensland arrowroot. Galangal in this bed, wicking bed, is still going gangbusters. The turmeric over there is starting to die off. You can see it falling over, but the galangal up the back there is still doing okay. Down here we have some honey pod peas. We've actually picked probably 1.5 meals to 2 meals out of these guys already. You can see there's some peas on over there. Carrots in the root pouches are doing really well down the front, and there's a load of strawberries down there that I've already moved into this little garden from the other one I showed you before. They're doing really well. They've actually sent runners off down there that I have to contain in root pouches. If you saw this bed go in, this little pouch garden go in, there were a couple of pouches of potatoes there. They just got absolutely caned by mites. so I decided to pull them out and just get rid of them out of the garden because I didn't want them to spread onto other plants around here. Down here we have the sweet potato wicking pouch, and as you can see the plants are doing really well. They've grown up the trellis and into the mango tree. So just here, some of the sweet potato is showing signs of mite damage as well. So definitely want to set some of the beneficial mites loose in this area here. Last thing I want to do is to lose my beautiful sweet potatoes that are growing in this root pouch down there. They're doing rather well so far. One thing I have found out though, that this, the Hawaiian purple variety, it's more a flat bushing, clumping variety. It doesn't tend to grow up a trellis like the orange one, so I'm pretty happy with that though. I just got to make sure that it doesn't, you know, send down roots in the mulched area and whatnot, mainly because it'll take some of the energy away from the rhizome in the pouch. I suppose that's pretty much all it for a bit of a look at what's going on out the back here. Oh, the compost pile, continually adding to that. And actually behind us here, we have our little native Australian bees. So these guys aren't doing much now that it's starting to cool down. You know, I've got loads of good shots of these guys coming in with pollen after they've been out foraging. So I sit down here with my coffee and it ends up going cold while I'm just mesmerised by these little fellas flying in and out. So as you can see, I've got a little bit of work in ahead of me. I've got to go through these other wicking beds and make sure there's no root intrusion in them. But I'm pretty chuffed that there wasn't too much into this bed here, just those two little bits. I'll be able to get another crop through that bed, use the soil once we pull it out and other wicking beds and whatnot. So there you go. Other updates, there is the front yard and a few other bits and pieces, aquaponics and whatnot, but I'll do updates on them over the couple of following weeks, just as I get some time to do them. So before the sun totally disappears, I may have mentioned that I did a workshop last weekend with Save Your Soil Permaculture out at Laley. G'day Michael and folks. It was a 2-day aquaponic course. One of the builds I did on the second day, or was it the first day? It was the first day, was a little chop and flip 50 gallon or 200 litre barrel build. Just something you can pop a couple of goldfish or ornamentals in the bottom and grow some leafy greens and herbs on top. Well, I posted a bit of a teaser clip to Instagram and Facebook. I've had loads of interest, so I'll start filming a clip just showing you how to knock one together for those folks who are interested. Just quickly, if this is the first time you've seen one of our clips and you're into backyard farming, urban farming and the like, feel free to hit that subscribe button and you'll get an email every time we post a clip to YouTube, and you can come along and see what's growing on in our small little backyard farm. Might be aquaponics or the soil patch or whatever, but you can come along and check it out and say g'day. But I will leave it there. I do hope everyone is well and happy and you're all fighting fit, and I will catch you next weekend. Cheers folks.